Okay. I
Are
think
we alive? Are
I
we?
think we are live. I don't know if the video feed is coming through yet. Um there it goes. Okay. We are Gucci. And we are
Ooh,
live.
Are you
sweetness.
streaming Portal, Nate?
I am streaming Portal.
Okay.
Yes. You have been re relieved of gaming duty.
That won't stop me from playing. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Oh, that works because, oh, JK, I was gonna say I have to update it anyway, but that update took 2 seconds. That's a hair. Get
Okay.
out of there.
Well, we're going to play Portal today.
Yeah.
While we talk about strong characters. So, uh Lars, you want to take it away? I am going to try and remember how to play with a keyboard and mouse cuz it's been a hot minute.
And I've never been good at playing with a keyboard and mouse. So kudos to you.
Favorite.
Uh, all right. So strong characters. We were having a really good discussion earlier today, um, about strong characters, and kind of like began with Scott saying that he really likes to see a character grow to become a strong character rather than starting off as a strong character.
Yeah.
And that led to a discussion that I think would be really neat to have right here. It honestly leads to a question that I think we've got to answer. What do we mean by strong characters? Do we mean like physically strong? Do we mean strong as an independent? Or are we talking about like anime strong, where it's just like, I must become stronger? And no one actually knows what that means.
Fair play.
Well, I mean, you can have all the physical strength you want, be super impressive, but it's still not gonna appeal to your audience very much. So I think it deals more with like the emotional and mental strength that you see in a character. At least that's what impresses me the most.
I mean, when it comes to like physically strong, like just thinking about like characters who, like for instance, who already start off physically strong,
Yeah.
watch some of the videos that we have up here on YouTube, should know that I really enjoyed Hunter's Guild, and one of the main characters, Grim, is a physically imposing, strong woman.
But
So it's like I'm totally fine with that. So like,
only
so
she's
yeah,
only that way part of the time. You have to remember that.
yeah, but still,
This still applies.
Yeah, it
so
Yeah.
doesn't
it
change.
still applies. And once again, this leads really to the question, like, what do we actually mean by strong? Because Scott, you're saying like right here, it's like just if a character becomes or is incredibly physically strong, that won't resonate necessarily with the audience. Well, not really. There are plenty of people who want to see that. So
Yeah.
again, we kind of have to ask ourselves, what are we talking about when we say make a strong character?
Also point out, Scott didn't say strong, he said independent. He said strong and independent,
Strong and
which
independence.
is another layer of what does that mean, because
Right.
not every I don't feel like every character should go through the same arc. Otherwise,
Oh,
you
yeah,
just run
definitely.
into
Oh,
all characters being the same.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, every character is gonna handle different things, like completely different. They're gonna end up being like growing up in completely different kind of backgrounds. And that's gonna completely change how they manage the different challenges. And like keeping that in mind as you're writing your story, I think is important because strength is gonna mean something different for each and every character.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of think that like, like strength is all relative and there's a lot you can do to not only
Yes.
like bring a character down a few notches, but you can also like make a character like you can have different levels of strength. You know what I mean? Like strength is not how do I get through this door? I think GLaDOS is
Is getting
talking.
through the door.
Um yeah, just sometimes just getting through the door is difficult. And so it's like there's there's an awful lot to the word strength. It's not just um like
It's not just physically
Yeah, it's not
imposing.
just physically, and that's actually one of the like main like points in my book is that strength isn't physical, it's mental, emotional, it's all of these different things. It's not just like, yes, being physically able to do things, that is a type of strength, but so too is, like dedication, so too is like courage, so too is so many other things. It's all strength, and so you kind of have to think about, how is my character going to grow, because that's where strength is. It's not the ability to be like pick things up, but rather the ability to face difficult obstacles.
I think
in
oh.
in my book, Knights of Halley Cruise, there's a couple of characters who are in a position where they have to get quote unquote stronger. But the stronger for some of them is in one case the stronger is expanding essentially their ability to be creative. Creativity is a strength that they don't yet have, and so they're trying to build that up, and it's a slow but sure process. And then for another character who is physically incredibly strong, her journey of gaining strength is basically her ability to open up and be vulnerable. So yeah, strength. So the idea of strength can be many different kinds of things.
Yeah.
I don't really like the term, frankly.
I don't like the term, frankly.
No, I don't really like, frankly. I don't really like the term strength when we are talking about characters. Because it feels too limiting to be like, oh, well, this person, because 9 times out of 10, yeah, the strength, quote unquote, that they're getting is just their character arc. How are they growing as a person?
Yeah.
And I don't really see that as, oh, well, they're getting stronger, whether that's emotionally or mentally.
Yeah.
That just bothers me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I take umbrage with the term just in general. Because not every character is like, that's the thing, is in the effort to make them human, their character arcs, a protagonist's character arc is going to look vastly different. And it's not always going to be point A to point B. Like, for example, I was talking to Spencer about this, and he mentioned one of his characters in the story we're writing she is an extremely powerful being. She's a fairy, and she's super powerful, but she has a lot of emotional baggage because of the death of her family that she can't come to terms with, and has a lot of like emotional trauma and mental trauma because of that. But I don't really see her character arc as, well, now she's stronger by the end. She did it. Like, coming to terms with your trauma, I don't see that as a good job. Your mental fortitude is stronger. Like, that is just stupid to me. It's more of the fact of like, yes, it's okay to be vulnerable and to acknowledge the terrible things that have happened and how it's affected you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like it's way too limiting of a term, and it bothers me.
It's character growth.
Yes,
Is
exactly.
Is honestly what we're looking at here.
Yeah, just like a well-written character.
Yeah.
But you can still have a character. I mean, you kind of have to look at it in a different way. Well, in a way there, because you can definitely have positive character growth, but you can also have negative character growth, in my opinion.
That would be regression then.
Yeah, but that's still like character growth in a way, and depending on how you want the character to go through, you can do that.
I can see that. I can see that within within a certain context, depending on where you want to take a specific character.
Yeah.
So it becomes character regression like in the case of, and minor spoilers right here, like for the character Kaladin in the Stormlight Archive, who deals with depression,
Yeah.
and there's a couple of times in the books where he just makes phenomenal progress in just being able to open up, form healthy relationships, and even be honest with himself about what's going on. And then there's other times where he makes decisions that cause him to take 2 3 steps backwards from where he had been and just relapse into that depression, and then he falls into self-loathing. Like that's character regression. But then I'd say like a point of like positive, oh, like not positive, but negative progression would be like, let's say you look at the character of Voldemort, who, when we get glimpses into his past, we know that he's becoming Dark Lord. That's the path that he himself even wants to go on as a young man, as a kid, even. And we see the steps that he takes. Is it a good thing that he does this? Absolutely not. But in his own mind, where he himself is going, he's making progress. It's just negative. Like
Right.
I can see within a certain context that that would work.
Right. And you look at like
Put it as.
Shakespeare.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So you look at like Shakespeare and Hamlet. What's that one woman's character that goes insane at the end?
Ophelia.
Ophelia. In my mind, that's a character regression right there, as they're going insane. I mean, they're moving forward, but it's not necessarily a good thing.
See, I feel like this just wraps back around to how we define things because I feel
Yeah.
like the example of Voldemort, I wouldn't call that character growth because when we're talking the grand scheme of like storytelling and like character growth, that is has a positive thing equated to it. That would be as like more like I would say more like a character arc because that can be a negative or a positive thing.
And then again, right there, I guess you'd say like we've come down to semantics, because I would still say with
Exactly.
a character arc, you got a certain bit of growth. So hence why it's like this is a very interesting conversation to have, and I would love to hear like what other more established authors would have to say about this, because I have heard authors just speak in terms of strength, and other authors then speak in terms of character growth rather than rather than playing to strengths and weaknesses. It's a it's a crazy conversation. This is what happens when you have a bunch of novices watching Portal, trying to trying to
Our
discuss
minds are
something
being bent as we're
trying to discuss something that none of us actually studied.
Yeah, it's all a bunch of gobbledygook.
Yeah. Well, I think if we want to actually touch on like physical strength, like rather than more of like a character progression slash growth slash regression kind of a point of conversation, I I still stand by the what I said earlier in the group chat, where it's like a character that starts out too strong. Like we were kind of having this conversation where like if a character starts out too strong, then they don't really have as much room to grow, and it's very much like for those who are unfamiliar, Fire Emblem kind of has this this like character archetype basically, where these characters will, at the beginning of the game, there'll be a character that is very strong, like in order to help you get through the early battles. You know, you can really rely on this overpowered character, right? But of course, like as the game goes on, that character becomes less and less useful because they have already met their like terminal velocity is not the right word to use, but I'm going to use it anyway. Like early on, like, you know, like there's you can't progress that character as far as you can a character that, you know, has never touched a sword before, and those characters in the game are you know, they are a pain to try and train because they are so easily killed. But by the end of the game, they are by far the most powerful characters because they have gone through the ringer in order to become as powerful as they are. You know, that's kind of a silly analogy, but I think it kind of gets the point across where it's like, and like I said, it's all
Semantics.
well, no, not semantics. It's all
Relative.
relative. Thank you. My beam
Maybe-
doesn't work when I play
And you
Portal.
kind of think about it though, and we're just going back to like that character growth. Or like, okay, they start out wherever they are strong in one way, and then as they go on, you get the chance to see them gain that strength in another way, or
Yeah.
get that character growth in another way,
Right.
to add on to what they already have.
Yeah, because it's like I think that just comes down to whether or not taking this out of the scope of video games, but whether or not you have a well-written character. Because
Mhm.
there are plenty of very physically strong characters, like Wolverine, for example, or Saitama, or Kratos. I'm currently playing God of War again, and so that's
Hey.
a big one. It's like
Yeah.
he's extremely strong, but that's not where his character arc is. So
Uh-huh.
I think it just, like anything, it just comes down to
Oh my goodness.
you can still have your character progress in other ways beyond
Yeah.
just physicalness. Like he's already a strong, independent character,
Right.
but that's not the only way to have a character grow.
Right.
Exactly.
So what
Did
if
we lose
we
Lars?
We did lose
Uh,
Lars.
we
He
did
Okay.
this part?
I think his internet crapped out. So
Yeah,
we're flying blind here, people.
I heard the blorp.
The blorp.
Right. So what if we flip the script on this? What?
Okay.
So instead of strength, where does weakness fit into all of this?
What do you mean?
I mean, you definitely have your strong characters, the ones that have grown quite a bit, but what about the ones that either start off weak or start off
Oh.
with less experience in that way?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. I
Wait,
understand
Scott.
your question.
Scott, say
Yeah.
rephrase that.
Yeah.
Could you
Um,
rephrase that like I'm 5?
Because I am.
You're dealing with 2 mentally weak characters right now.
You're
Well,
dealing with somebody who has
Scott,
two
Scott, I'm
brains.
going
I
to
feel like it's
I'm going to give you
important.
a chance. Scott, I'm going to give you a chance to think about right here because Venus put something into the chat that I think is good, and I want to get to it actually before we
Okay.
get lost in the weeds. Whoop! Just got to move a cat away from my computer. There we
Fat
go.
cat.
So, oh yeah, fat cat right here. So, Venus said, something I found interesting is a lot of physically strong characters aren't able to be emotionally vulnerable. Just an observation. Yeah, that kind of comes down to a trope, a character trope, like the strong ones. Why are they so strong? Well, they obviously haven't embraced their emotional side, and I mean that works sometimes for some characters. But one of the things that I do enjoy is being able to see a character who is physically strong, who is also just human, and that's
Thinking
really
up in
who
his cells.
most physically strong people are. Like my grandpa, like my aunt, like some of my uncles who are very big, imposing people, are very emotional, like in the sense that like they'll laugh, they're happy. If they're sad, they'll show it. They're not just stoic and with a stiff upper lip. And I've found that most people who are physically imposing do indeed show their emotions. I'm not sure exactly where this trope came from. So like so like that's one of the things I loved about reading Mistborn. One of the characters, Ham, is a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve. He's such an honest man, and and there's no way that he can hide his emotion, and that like a lot of other characters kind of make fun of him for that. Because he's with a bunch of thieves. They lie, they misdirect. Ham can't do any of that. Ham is an open book.
I have a theory, but it might be too hot of a take.
Ooh, ooh. Let's hear the hot take, and then hopefully Scott's got his got the question pared down.
In terms of why that's a trope, I think it literally just comes down to toxic masculinity. So art imitates life in that sense.
Hey, I'll accept that.
Checks out in my book. Ooh, worms.
Worms. We are worms.
Worms.
I'm
All right,
playing
Scott.
Stardew.
Scott, you got you got it. The question.
I don't know as much a question as more of an explanation, but I was just kind of like trying to flip the script, because we started this talking about how to make strong characters, but I also think these characters having a weakness, having weaknesses, having faults, it also plays into that and how we perceive how like strong they are.
Yeah. Well, and I think that comes down to like having a weakness is not this, like being strong is not the same of as having no weaknesses, you know? And like is there a way to run? That would be great. I don't think there's a way to run in this game.
When we live in a world where we expect dash abilities.
Oh,
nope.
that's not where I'm going. Is that where I'm going? That's where I'm going. It like the way I have always like kind of planned out my characters is that I have, for each character, I have something that like holds them back that they have to overcome, and that is like in a sense a quote unquote weakness. But I also have what I call a bane for each character, and that is something that they can't control that will hold them back, but it's not something that they necessarily need to overcome. It's more of like a character flaw rather than a quote unquote weakness. And so it's like, yes, these characters need to overcome, you know, their own struggles, but sometimes struggles are there whether or not like
no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some things like, for instance, my character Zemo, there's nothing that's ever going to change the fact that he's a cripple from the waist down.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just the way that he is. Part of his character is defined by how he has lived his life around that disability,
Yeah.
but he's not held back by it. So
Yeah, exactly. And it would be a disservice to your character if you're like, oh, he's getting quote unquote stronger, I'm giving him legs. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly.
Like that would be a big disservice to his character who has spent so much of his life like, oh, damn it.
Well, I also like, Lars, that you don't make the fact that he is paralyzed from the waist down, you don't make that his entire like what's the word? Not his personality, but like that's not what his struggle is. You know, it's like, nah, he's got other shit going on. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yeah, that's just a part of who he is, and you're not making like I feel like that's way more relatable than making it a book about a guy who has to like he's a grown ass adult at this point.
Yeah.
Like that's something that he lives with at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
And you're only really going to have that kind of like character arc if it's suddenly thrust upon him as like, oh, this is a new thing that he can't use his legs anymore, and he has to deal with that.
Right.
You're only going to worry about that in that case. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to have to, like, it's just part of that character.
Yeah, otherwise it would feel like you were trying too hard with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Not our precious boy.
Not a precious boy.
Oh man, I so enjoyed writing him. It was a great way to kind of like in my mind like pay homage to some great people that I've known who are in wheelchairs, and also kind of like a chance to like go back to my time in a wheelchair, because like at first I remember like when I had my feet reconstructed and I was going through the whole process of learning how to walk again and everything, like it was a big struggle. I remember everyone's like, "Oh, Lars is learning how to walk again," and it's so special. I mean, it's a big deal. But after like about 9 months to a year of all of this, it just became like second nature, living around the chair and everything. And so then after that, what did young teen Lars start thinking about? Young teen Lars began thinking about like the thing that most teenage boys are thinking about: girls. It's like, how is a girl? It's like, how can I get that girl's attention over there? I know, I'm gonna pop a wheelie.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
stupid stuff like that.
I keep dying. Yeah.
Priorities.
Yeah, and that's like the thing. It's like this disability isn't the story. It's the character trait. It's what makes the character more human, not what makes the character more of a badass, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, it does make them a badass, but that's not the point of it.
Yeah.
Kind of making a similar point earlier today, where it's like you have a character who's like, you can tell they're grown quite a bit. They've got either like a skill or intelligence. The example I used was like Black Widow. When she came into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, she was already a badass. That's what you got. But if they tried to kill her off like they did in Endgame, right when they introduced her, nobody would have that much feeling for it. It isn't until we've had a lot of that character growth that where that death actually hurts.
Shit hurted.
That, yes. Spoiler alert, I guess, for people who have not
Well,
seen Endgame.
No, screw you, Kevin Feige, for saying that you'll never think about potentially bringing her back again. Because I think that
Screw
Scarlett
you,
Johansson.
Kevin.
I think that Scarlett Johansson
Kevin.
really enjoyed playing as as Black
Super
Widow,
spy.
and that was a lot of fun.
Like,
Fine,
well, here's the
Kevin.
thing. This is a tangent, but like, come on. Now that we're in phase 4 with a freaking mother effing multiverse, you're not gonna bring her back as a variant? You're gonna look
Exactly.
me in the eye, Kevin, and tell me that you're not gonna bring her back as a variant?
You're
Get
gonna
out
look me
here,
in the eye
Kevin.
and tell me that I'm wrong?
Yeah, and I mean,
Well,
like they can bring back
They-
Gamora as a
they bring
variant,
back
but they can't.
Gamora as a variant. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, come on, Kevin, come on.
Now my butt's all buttered up. And I'm a hot angry
Oh.
biscuit.
Everybody likes a good buttered Camille.
At first I thought you were gonna say everyone likes a good buttered butt and be like, well.
Now we know what Nate does in the bedroom. Bazinga.
I will not confirm nor deny that statement.
You already did.
Goodbye.
What
A
was
good
the
question
other
right
topic?
there.
What's
Oh.
the question?
Oh, is no one allowed permanent death? I'd say go ahead with permanent deaths. I definitely have some permanent deaths in my stories. I've got some. If I bring a character back from the dead, that is very intentional. And people talk about, well, it's a cheap thing to do, and I'm like, again, it all depends. Character resurrections, if done right, like it doesn't have to be like now they come back with all these negative consequences. But if you have if you've set up the proper means of resurrecting a character and it makes narrative sense to bring them back, then I'd say let the writer, let the creator have a chance to prove that this was a good move and move on with it. If it turns out to be a bad move, then we can go back and we can say, okay, this is why it didn't work. But it's totally fine to kill off a character for good.
Yeah, kill away.
Except for
Okay.
except for you, Kevin Feige. How dare
Yeah.
you say that there's no variant of Natasha Romanoff somewhere out there
Yeah,
in the
I mean,
multiverse?
here's
Come
the
on.
thing, and I think that this actually brings up
Trash
another
can.
excellent point, is that if you try and bring one person back from the dead, then now you've opened a whole new can of worms, you know? And now it's
Right.
like the
Continuity's all janky. Well, and here's another thing too off of that is the What If MCU show has Black Widow in it. It has a variant of Black Widow already in it. So him saying that messes with the continuity of like Well, why couldn't you? Well, why not, Evan?
Kevin.
We just have personal beef with Mr. Feige, apparently.
Frankie.
Yeah,
Frankie,
there are
Frankie.
people in Hollywood that I would love to have like a good, honest conversation with. Not like curse at them in their face, because that's not a good conversation. But just like, dude, seriously, explain to me why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know. I want to know. All right, so Camille, you asked what the other thing was. I was saying a little bit earlier in our chat, not today, but like a few days ago, that I think it would be really interesting to to look at a mistake that I think not just novice writers, but even like established writers have committed, where they make a side character become kind of like too big. Like where a sidekick, like they're totally fine as a sidekick character or as someone
Mm.
that people like kind of come back to, their support character, but then they just hog the scene. And I'm
Mm.
sorry, Brandon Mole, I love you, I really do. I love your books, but you have some characters like Jace in the Five Kingdoms who just needs to go. Oh, he's a side character who stays along way too long, eats up space, eats up page time, eats up scenes that really he didn't need to have been in there.
His ass.
It's really not that hard to like move your characters around, have them kind of coming in and off stage, having different goals, and so they're you don't need the characters there all the time. So you can like, oh, this character is going to go off and do this while we're focusing on this main goal, but this helps too, and you know what I mean. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, it's like a play. You can't have every character on the stage at all times, or you can try, but I think it's kind of difficult to pull off, very least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like when I thought about this right here, like I thought about like, have I given like any of my side characters almost too much, almost like too much room?
Oh, hello.
Valley Cruise.
Oh,
I realized that I made it just so centered on Ben all the time that it seemed like he was just like one guy doing his thing, completely oblivious to the rest of the world. So I had
Hmm.
to create some side characters, and this is what led to like Tori, Nessa, Tuffy, Butch, and Niveline and Marshall all becoming characters.
oh,
And
okay.
and that was awesome. It was awesome to discover these characters and to like and to see how they would react in these situations I had not originally planned for them to be in. But uh but at one point I was like, you know what? Like I need to make sure that these new characters like have like some like I want them to have character arcs, and I started focusing like so much, for instance, on like a character like Niveline. Like Niveline, I have an entire backstory. I have a whole bunch of other stuff regarding her. I actually have a character from her backstory in another story searching for her, and it was just becoming this whole thing. And I just stopped myself and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is not her story. This is Ben and Jessica's story. I and
And
so I managed to stop myself before it got too bad, but I was getting carried away.
right, I think another thing you got to take a look at is how long you intend your story to be.
Hmm.
Because it's a big thing when I was really getting into short stories a while back, is when it comes to characters, you you only want to have as you're only one of the rules for short stories anyway, in my opinion, is you can only have one character per every 1,000 words that you write. And so if you're writing this like
Hmm.
really long, like multiple book story, yeah, you can have pretty much as many characters as you want, but you come down to a short story that's like 5,000, 7,000 words, you're only allowed that maybe 5 or 6 characters. Otherwise, it just gets too complicated. You're not able to do any of those characters justice in that short amount of time. Even though in short stories, the idea is to like shove as much as possible into that like smaller amount of words. But
Hmm.
I think you have to consider like how long your story is and how much room you have to like work on these different characters and their traits and all that kind of stuff. And if you're finding that you really need to boost a character in that way, you might just need to reevaluate how long your story needs to be at that point.
Oh, taken out by a death lady.
I do feel like though, like even if you have, like with Lars, for example, you know, Legend of the Ten Lords is a lot of books. You can still run into the problem where you have a side character. I wish I knew how to speak English. You still have a side character that eats up too much of a scene, or
Yeah.
just the story in general. That's a tough thing to work with, because that could very well be a darling you'd have to kill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I have had to do that.
Yeah.
With, either in scenes or characters. Um, yeah, I did a lot of that when I did my second draft for the Monarch Mercenaries. A lot of darlings that got axed, and honestly, it was for the better. And I definitely need to go have a look at that book again and see what else needs to be done, because there's a lot of side characters in that story, and one of the things that makes the juggling problem hard is that, like, if you put in a side character, you're going to give them a name. Like, you want to at least like make sure that like some sort of personality or some good description comes through, so that way there's a little bit more than just a name. And I made that mistake a lot in some sections of the Knights of Halley cruise, where characters have names but like no personality. And I look
They're
back
just
at it
red
now and I
shirts.
just saw like, yeah, they're red shirts, and I'm just like, ah, darn.
Yeah.
Someone pull out their phasers and just put this son of a gun out of his misery.
Yeah, at some point you kind of need to realize, like, this story is not about this character. And I think that comes down to, you know, the iceberg effect, where you only show 10% of what you only show 10% of the world that you're writing in. You only show 10% of your characters, you know, and it kind of sucks to only show 10% when you've spent so much time building these characters and making them, you know, believable. But that's what makes them believable, is only seeing the 10%. How often do you see everything about an individual you just met on the street? Like, you don't know,
Right.
you don't even know 10% of their life. And, you know, it all just, that's kind of the point.
I think with that, then, to bring the 2 points together, how do you then make a side character that does, like, that actually has a personality, even if they, or are memorable in some way, even if they only have a small portion of screen time, for lack of a better word?
Wait, could you say that again?
Yeah.
Maybe I cut out for a moment.
So to kind of bring together your point, Lars, and Nate's point of, like, you only show about 10%, which is true, but at the same time, you still want to be able to show that side characters are human and have personalities. So how do you do it in a way that you have the best of both worlds?
I think, and this is something we have right here from title saying make them talk funny, just give them a quirk. Something memorable. It doesn't have to be huge. Doesn't have to be earth shaking, but but like a good like let's see, pulling from my stories and what I feel like I've at least done well. In Bleed, Steam, and Steel, there's a lot of different side characters that just pop in and out, in and out, in and out. Especially for Zimon's Zimon's story, and also Asuka's. Asuka's like is facing off against her rivals, and some of her rivals are really only there for like one chapter. And so like I give them a little bit of history. Why do they not like Asuka, or why does Asuka not like them? And they have a conversation and they fight and whatnot, and then it's resolved, and you move on. And so like that way Asuka's going through her character progression, she's growing as an individual, and you get to see the people who have influenced her, even if they're only around for a short amount of time. Or like one scene, Zimon is sitting out there in the rain, and it's like it's a little while after he and Celestine have started their relationship. Like this is the first time he's actually been with a woman, and so the guy he's right next to is married, and so they have a conversation about romance. And this guy, you never see him again. He doesn't show up later because he gets killed. They have a conversation there where he talks about his wife and what it's like to be away from her because he's a spy, how they keep their relationship healthy. And so like just having like good moments that feel real because you're giving these characters a chance to express their personality, express some of their history, even if it's just for one chapter or one scene, it allows them to be memorable, be real, without taking up everything.
I also feel like you can take a little bit of time to fill out, like, give a little bit of the reputation the character has before you even meet the character in the book. And you could almost use fairly broad strokes when you do that. And then when you get into actually meeting that physical character, you can sit down and, like, really kind of nail down some of those smaller details that fleshes them out a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dragon Uprising has a really good question about this. If the side characters are very entwined with the MC in terms of growing up together, does it become even more difficult to define how much time a side character gets, or is it the same?
Ooh, yeah, that is a good question. Nathan.
Yes.
So I think you have a good a good answer that you've actually written in here with Lily and Steffi, because Steffi isn't necessarily a main character, but she's around for a good portion of the ride. How did you figure out like what was like how to best utilize Steffi?
Oh geez. Well, to cover my own tracks here, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like it's just something that takes a little bit of practice and time. But one of the main things that I do is that I have kind of their relationship be... How do I put this in words? It's not like it's almost like I treat them as their own separate main characters, if that makes sense. And in this one, like in this story, like Lily is the main character and she is the point of view, and so I don't try and like get Steffi too much into the story. But of course, like Steffi is also still like a central part of it, in the sense of like she's helping Lily along the way. Ooh, oh, nuts. I missed. That, I don't know. That's honestly, I did a lot of like kind of compared it to my own like relationships and how I, how I kind of went along with like my friends and how they kind of influenced me. If that makes any sense. Why did I get
that I think it makes good sense. I like what you said right there. It's like you wrote them as if they're the main character in their own story.
Yeah.
And that helps to give them some sense of autonomy. I think that's something, Dragon Uprising, that you'll want to consider with your side characters. Like, let's say it's a side character who's important to the history of one of your MCs, and whether it be because they're going on a quest together, or because they've gone through something traumatic together, or maybe they've just gone their separate ways and they're meeting up again for the first time. There could be many different things that bring these characters together. You can think about what this friend not necessarily wants in the relationship, but like what are their goals? What are they planning on doing? And like that's what Nathan has done with Steffi. It's one of the reasons why, Nathan, I put you on into the spotlight, because I am honestly very impressed with how you have intertwined the stories of Steffi and Lily, especially because, like, in my stories, at least so far, most of them, the main characters or the side characters, are all kind of off doing their own thing. They're
Yeah.
not necessarily all in a group together for a time working together, and I then have to worry about like what brought their stories
Yeah.
and their motivations all
Well,
together. So
and
I
I
like the
think
complexity that you bring in.
yeah, and I think you made a good point there where it's I didn't like I said, I kind of wrote it in the sense of like they're both, the main characters in their own stories, and for a portion of the book, the journeys that both of them are going on, are the same direction. But at one point in the book, it's like, well, I really like your point is to do this X thing, and that's the story of the book. But Steffi's story is I need to go do this thing, which is not what you are doing, And so it's like that makes it feel I just fell off. That makes it feel like, yeah, no, she has autonomy outside of the bounds of the book. And I think that that's an important thing to think about, is that like if it's a secondary character, if it's not the main character, if the book weren't to happen at all, if the event that caused the book to take place, if that never happened, what would this character be doing at that point in time? And like what is it that like lets their their stories intertwine like that? Because yeah, your friends are great and all, but at what point are you just like oh shoot, I did the wrong one. Like I'm trying to think of how to say this properly, but it's like just because you guys are friends does not mean that you will do everything together. And so like part of what makes you friends is the fact that you're oh my gosh, I'm getting frustrated here. I'm just gonna stop playing for a second while I think. Like part of what makes you friends is the fact that your aspirations align, and and that's what makes them such great friends. That's what makes them a great dynamic, is the fact that they are doing this together, but they don't have to be. I don't know if I'm just rambling at this point.
Yeah, I think I like what you're saying right there. A good strong side character is someone who's there because they want to be and not because they have to be.
Yeah.
If you're doing it just for the sake of plot, I mean, it can work, but it won't ever be quite as meaningful.
Yeah.
As if you've really brought these characters together because of their different motivations, personalities, etc., etc.
Yeah. And make your friends best friends. Like I know that kind of sounds like of course, but like, oh, I did it again. Why is this so hard? Like if your characters can't laugh with each other, then it's not going to feel like an actual best friendship. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
have them laugh, have them tease each other, and then it'll feel like an actual friendship, and it'll feel like actual, like, the character enjoys being around this other character. And that's going to be so much more impactful when they, for example, in my story, I have it where they split ways for a good portion of the book because their goals don't currently align. And, it's fine.
Yeah.
What was the original question again?
It's an
The original question was the side characters are very intertwined with the MC in terms of growing up together. Does it become even more difficult to define how much time a side character or characters get, or is it the same?
Oh, okay.
It's just like I think ultimately right here what we're trying to say is that if a side character has a very emotional connection or a very personal connection to the main character, that's totally fine. In fact, if anything, like really like lean into that. but just treat them as once again as people, as actual friends. Let this other character have his or her autonomy.
Yeah.
Again, that's one of the things that, like, coming back to you, Brandon Mole, you writing Jace, is that Jace is just around to be the wise-cracking bully. There's no other reason for him to be there. I mean, his character arc is to basically bully Cole, crack stupid jokes that never make anyone either reading the book or in the book laugh, and to get the girl at the end because I guess Brandon Mole suddenly got slapped with the trope of first girl is best girl. It's just like, ah.
Along the lines of that question, I definitely feel like, in that sense, since they're so intertwined, then yeah, definitely they would have a much bigger presence in the story. And I would say a bigger influence on the main character in terms of, you have a lot of room with that. They could influence them in terms of what decisions they make, just how they're feeling that day. And I think you could look at your own best friend or best friends and think about how much you talk to them every day, and also like talking to them about the depths of your conversations, and how talking to your friends influences your decisions and the way that we think about things, like et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like in that sense, it's like that would absolutely change the game.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of fun you could have with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean. Like, explore your own friendships, because and the old verbiage, write what you know. I'm not saying you should lift exact conversations from you and your friend, but you understand the relationship between you and your friend better than, some outside source. And so take that relationship energy and bottle it into your story.
Yeah.
If that made any sense.
I think that's really good. That's actually one of the things that, once again, looking back at what I wrote for Knights of Halicruise, because that was definitely one. What I told you guys like years ago when we first started writing, I'm like, I hate writing dialogue, and I was like, I don't want to write the dialogue for some of these characters because I don't know how some of these friendships are supposed to play out, and it took draft after draft after draft to try to like figure it out. And in the end, I tapped into some of that crazy energy of like write what you know. And thinking back to it, like back in high school, I wasn't someone who actually had a whole lot of friends that I actively communicated with. So it's just like what I observed, and one of the things I observed was that some best friends would take their other friend's backpack and chuck it into the girl's bathroom, and then just watch as shenanigans ensued. And so I just lifted that, put it into one of the scenes of my book, and then it finally blossomed, and then I was having fun writing that out.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there was a question. Hey, you're welcome, Dragon Uprising. So there was a question right here. This is off topic, but since we're in the attitude of answering questions right here, and let's lay down the hammer once and for all on this, because this is a question that we've gotten a few times from you. Yes, Title. I continue to see your question. What sounds cooler, a completely deranged, vengeful spirit, or one who is bound by honor and is way more calm and stuff? Honestly, I'm going to agree right here with Venus. It depends on what you feel confident in writing and what the story calls for. If you're
Yeah.
if you're going into Ghostbusters, I expect deranged spirits. No honorable, sad little I'm okay here spirits, because any spirit that remains in the world of Ghostbusters is crazy. But if you're writing something where like someone's spirit has been stuck to someone else, well, that depends. Are you writing a murder story? Are you like, God, why am I Ghost Whisperers?
Do we lose him?
Ghost Whisperers? Ghost
Did
you lose
Talkers?
me?
Is that what you're
Stalker.
saying?
Stalkers. Yeah, Ghost Talkers.
Oh, yes.
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 Ghost Talkers is an excellent example of why you need a calmer spirit to
Yeah.
kind of be around in that kind of a situation. I highly recommend that you check out Ghost Talkers.
By Mary
It's
Robinette
fantastic.
Koval.
Agreed.
It is one of my all-time favorite books, and it is a fan favorite here at Camille's Harem.
Yes.
And
So
by fan
good.
favorite, I mean it's community choice.
Yeah.
No, it's right. I have a copy right next to my television set. It's right there.
I've bought like 4 or 5 copies to give out to friends, and so yes, it's phenomenal. With that said, any closing remarks as we kind of wrap
Nate,
up?
I know, Nate, that you wanted that you got to go here soon, and so we're all going to bow out. But Fang of Dripping Blood did send in a request for
Is that in
quick
the Discord?
wordsmithing. It is in the Discord. I'm about to pop it right on over here into the live chat. Oh, I exceeded the amount of characters. As one does.
Will you also paste it in the internal Camille's Harem Discord?
Yes.
And I'll throw that up on the screen.
Okay. Yes, I shall do that. But the reason why I'm highlighting just this one because Fang of Dripping Blood did send in 2. Again, I think that there was some really good. There was some good commentary back on our Discord about sentence number 1. That it's honestly a good one. So I'm not going to eat up too much time for you tonight, Nate.
Okay.
Because we respect all this. Oh, come on, let me.
Is it
frickin'
in
have the
writing
chat.
help or writing advice?
It's just in general.
Actually, no. It went on to the general.
Oh, okay.
Now right there. Okay. Whoop. Come on, don't do this to me, computer. There we go.
You got this.
You
I
good?
got this. I am better. I am stronger than my own computer. I might look like a nerd, but I
Character
seriously
growth.
do not know my way around computers.
What an arc.
Okay. Let's see.
An arc. All right. So he let the fire within him rise as he opened his jaws and released a torrent of flames upon their caves, listening as the humans screamed, watching their homes and kin burn. Once the torrent of flames died down, India roared his dominance with utter ferocity. This human territory was his to destroy, and all the humans his to kill.
Okay.
Personally, I like it. There's just a little bit of grammatical little stuff that you got to take care of here. Some Jed mistakes, like putting some spaces.
Yeah, put some spaces
here and there.
and here.
Yeah. Watch out for those commas.
As he opened the jaw and released a torrent of flames.
Other than that, I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, I like this one right here.
Yeah.
Very good use of words. I get the I don't even know the full context right here, but I feel the emotion, I feel the ferocity, and I can put myself into this very short scene right here.
Yeah.
And so I think this is good.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this feels like there's certain times when you want to spend a minute to make sure that the sentence or the paragraph reads really well, and there's also times when it's it doesn't really matter. You're just getting, if it's a paragraph that gets you from point A to point B, don't stress too much about it. But a sentence or a paragraph like this reads very well. This seems like a paragraph that you had spent quite a bit of time to really nail down, and it shows. It shows that this isn't something important. It's not just a point A to point B kind of a sentence. This is something that means something in the story, and it has emotion behind it too.
Yeah. No, this is good.
Very good.
This is good. Yeah. Say just make sure that you're putting spaces there after the commas.
Yeah.
and that's good. And I mean, we make them mistakes all the time. I don't know how many times I've put in a semicolon when I meant to do an apostrophe. So
Yeah, this is why it's good to keep a
Oh,
grammar
wait.
Nazi around, like Camille. What? Who said that?
That's what I'm here for, baby.
Yeah. To tell
Yes.
us that we're stupid and we don't know how to use grammar properly.
That's right. Stupid.
The only
Yeah,
reason we keep her around. No.
Yeah.
that and she has.
So the only reason I keep you around is to feed my ego, Nate.
Yeah, I figured as much.
It keeps us around because he has our souls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have no choice.
It
We
has her
have to.
kneecaps.
I'm like the beast in Over the Garden Wall.
Yeah.
Ooh, ooh. Oh, that's so good. That actually almost gave me a little chill right there.
I've got a little lantern.
And we
Put
must
your
feed
soul
the fire.
inside the lantern.
Oh, John
I-
Wells just hopped on. Sorry,
Hi,
John
John.
Wells. We are wrapping up soon.
We're just about to wrap up here.
Thanks
Uh,
for coming and stopping by, though.
But,
It was a joy.
I mean, John's already seen my little announcement for this, but I'm going to announce it right here as well. Just as kind of like a things to look out for.
Yeah.
I'm going to be dropping the first in a mini series of videos that I'm titling "Defending Tolkien." Since we now have a release date for Amazon's Lord of the Rings of Power series. And you know what? Like, I've already seen so many other YouTubers just like with all their negative reactions. I mean, I've had a negative reaction to a lot of the stuff that they're spouting out, but I want to take a more positive spin and actually like look at the amazing things that Tolkien has left us. Especially if you're a fantasy writer or a fantasy fan like I am, there's so much that we can learn and appreciate from Tolkien. And so before everyone begins taking off their gloves and slugging it out in September over this Amazon series, I want to bring some positivity to the internet and some great writing advice and writing critique brought to us by Grandpa Tolkien.
Good old Grandpappy Tolkien. Well,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, anything else we want to announce other than our typical join us on the Discord, because it's always a rip-roaring good time, which you can find that in the description. Anything else?
I guess the only other thing would be to in March we have our Harem retreat coming up, so we'll have some special content for you guys then,
Yeah.
like mid-March, mid to late-ish March.
Yes, and I agree with what Dragon
Yeah.
Uprising said, that we need more positivity nowadays. Positivity in our
Period.
lives is always a plus. Ha! Get it?
Ahaha.
Yeah, no, and when we get to March, like we've been sitting on doing something for our 1,000 subscriber landmark. We've not forgotten, and we definitely want to share our thanks with everyone.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do it when we're all together
In
again,
March.
because in March, because we're all separated. So it's kind of hard to do something cool when we're all in different places.
In 3/4 different cities.
Yeah.
And across state lines. But anyway, is it time to say goodbye to Mother
I think it is.
Yes. Say and your kneecaps.
and my kneecaps? I knew it. Goodbye, kneecaps.
All right. Thanks, everyone. If there is, I would say as well, if there is anything else that you guys want to see from us, any topics that you want us to tackle or whatever, just let us know and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah,
Hey.
we will.
But on that note, goodbye, Mom.